Hello! Now that I have my EDS diagnosis, I want to do the This is my EDS tag. The tag was made by the lovely Annie Elainey, and it allows you to tell everyone about how EDS affects you as an individual. EDS affects everyone so differently, it's on such a spectrum, and this tag is an opportunity for you to tell everyone how it affects you as an individual. So today I'll be doing part 1 of this tag, called What EDS is Like on My Body. Number 1. Introduce yourself. Name, pronouns, and EDS type. Hi, my name is Esme, my pronouns are she, her, and I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Number 2. First things first, in one word, how are you feeling today? I am feeling inspired or excited to be starting this. Number 3. For those who don't know, can you explain EDS medically in a sentence? EDS is a genetic connective tissue disorder caused by a defect in collagen production, which then affects the skin, blood vessels, joints, internal organs, basically everything. Number 4. What is your favorite analogy for how EDS feels? My hips are the worst, and I usually explain my hip pain as having bees inside of them. Basically, there's like a constant nagging. Like, you know that there's something wrong. Like, the bees are constantly buzzing. And I don't know what I do to make the bees angry, but sometimes they just go wild. And they stab and hurt. And other times it just randomly happens. And there's nothing leading up to it, and it just randomly starts to hurt. Another one I tend to use is that my joints are like a rubber band. Like, you can pull it and stretch it out, and then, a regular rubber band would either snap or go back to its original size, but for me, they just kind of stay floppy and don't do what they're supposed to do. Number 5. What are your symptoms and comorbid illnesses/conditions? Well, that's gonna be quite a list, so get ready. I have chronic pain, mostly in my hips, but also in my knees a little bit because they hyperextend, as well as my hands, also because they hyperextend. I have hypermobility in my arms and my knees and my fingers and my toes. Not fun. So that means I have lax joints, which can lead to subluxations. I have subluxations in my hip, and a couple weeks ago I had my first subluxation in my shoulder, trying to do a handstand in a pool. But I've never had a full-on dislocation, luckily. I bruise easily, and I have a little bit of stretchy skin. I don't know if that's normal or stretchy. I don't know what's normal anymore. I have pulmonary issues, as in my lungs. I have asthma, which I keep under control with a rescue inhaler. I have cardiovascular issues. I have a VSD, a ventricular septal defect, meaning there's a hole in between the 2 ventricles in my heart, which I had as a kid, and then they fixed it. And then a year ago I went for an echo because I was having shortness of breath symptoms, and then they found out that I have a VSD again. But nothing to worry about right now. I have a hard time paying attention. Definitely made worse by the fact that sometimes I can't understand very well. Like, someone will have to repeat themselves like 5 times before it clicks. But just concentrating is hard. College lectures were so difficult to follow. My feet are always super, super cold, even in hot temperatures. And hot temperatures are literally the worst for me. They make all of my problems worse, and I just start to feel so unwell all the time. I can't stand very long, usually about 10 or so minutes, maybe a little bit less, and then my hips start to hurt or my knees will start to hurt. So I usually need to sit down like all the time, and walking sucks a lot too, but if I'm moving, it tends to hurt less than, standing still, because then that hurts my knees. I have low blood pressure. I regularly fall down and black out when I stand up, like almost all the time. But my doctor says it's normal, so, doctors. I also have anxiety, a history with depression, and I have selective mutism. So now that that list is done, number 6, how does EDS impact your daily life? The main thing that comes to mind is that I had to drop out of college twice. I was a nurse for a year, and then my symptoms got so bad, my hip pain got so bad that I just couldn't do it anymore. And as a nurse, you have to walk like 7-8 kilometers a day, and with chronic hip pain, I just couldn't do that. I dropped out of the study at the end of the year, and then applied for a primary teaching study. But being a disabled teacher with anxiety and selective mutism did not go well, so they fired me from the internship, and I dropped out after like 4 months. As for going to doctors or hospitals, I used to see my GP regularly, but that was before my diagnosis, and I would go for every little thing because like I constantly got a new symptom, or I noticed a new symptom. But after my diagnosis, I mainly just go to the hospital, like my medical center where I have all my specialists, which is great. I love having my diagnosis because it means that I have all these specialists helping me out. So I go to my hospital / medical center regularly, mainly for like heart checkups or to have like diagnosis appointments. That's been like my main thing lately. It's been diagnosis appointments. I got my diagnosis last month, and now that that's confirmed, I'm on this whole like journey of seeing different specialists. And I actually got my rehab physio letter today from like the professional people who actually know what they're doing. So no more garbage physiotherapists who don't know what they're talking about. In daily life, I get around fine walking, mostly. The pain is usually manageable and I can push through it, or, you know, it's so low that I hardly notice it. And on like worst days, I either use my crutches to get around, or I stay in bed all the time to, you know, rest and hope that it passes soon. Last week in Denmark, we went to Legoland, and I used a wheelchair for the first time. And it was more of a preventive measure, but it was actually pretty cool. I went through the whole day like pain-free, pain-low, and at the end of the day, I still felt the same as I did in the morning. Maybe a little worse because, you know, end of the day, but still pretty good. And that's something I've never had at the end of a theme park day. So that was awesome. As for work, I work for Rev, which is a captioning company that I really enjoy working for. I worked a lot over the time that I wasn't in school, so about February until now, to save up for my new camera. But now that I've, you know, hit my goal, I don't really need to work anymore, which is nice. Having my symptoms, my problems, it used to bother me a lot because I didn't know where they were coming from or why I was having them. But since my diagnosis, I'm like, it's such a weight off my shoulders to know that it's not just like random stuff happening to me, like there's an actual reason as to why I have this. So that was part 1 of the This Is My EDS tag. I hope you enjoyed watching it, maybe even learned something from it. I will probably be doing part 2 and 3 at some point. Don't know when though. So until then, see you later. Bye.